I would like to talk about corruption and insider trading, Paul, specifically with our elected officials. So there's been a lot made, for instance, of President Trump's special dinner that he had. When was that? Back in like March? May, sorry. So he hosted a dinner with 220 holders of a cryptocurrency that bears his name. And tough to look at this as anything other than buying your way into a meeting with the president. It was very blatant, very front and center, and I think deservedly got a lot of criticism about the way it was structured. The problem I see is all of those criticizing it have almost no leg to stand on, because instead of doing these conflict of interest deals out in the front, what they've done instead over the last 30 years has been kind of behind closed doors with insider trading on knowledge that they have that is really difficult to charge them with. So, if you don't like this, then you probably shouldn't like what you've seen from the likes of all elected officials and all presidents past that have done this in some different way. Just shadier behind closed doors would be my opinion. But Wall Street Journal is reporting today that lawmakers traded stocks heavily as President Trump rolled out Liberation Day tariffs. I can guarantee there were select lawmakers that had inside knowledge about what was coming on this front. And you have massive trading that was probably done on inside information that will never be charged because it's really difficult to do with lawmakers. And I keep thinking about this and going back to one solution. If you're an elected official, pretty much at the level of I think governor and then anything federally, you just can't own stocks. You certainly can't trade them.
Yeah.
And we need to have this across the board. And you know what? You give them a capital gains waiver, right? So you say, look, yeah, we understand you're an elected official that owns $20 million worth of ExxonMobil. Mm-hmm. You would have to pay a boatload of taxes if you went and sold it. Fine. You can transfer your cost basis. You have to transfer it into an exchange fund. Just owning an index of U.S. stocks is fine. Mm-hmm. But you still can't trade that. But you're not even allowed to own the stocks. We won't charge you a capital gain on it because you're an elected official, and that'd be punishing. That'd be unfair if we said, hey, you're elected now, so you have to sell all of your stocks and pay a bunch of taxes. No, that's fine. You can transfer your positions into a general index that holds U.S. stocks, but they can't even be industry specific. It has to just be some index. I don't care who decides this, the S&P 500 or something along those lines. So long as you're holding office, you cannot trade that index. You can't buy it and sell it when you know that President Trump's about to roll out tariffs or the next president's about to raise taxes or shut down the economy due to a COVID disease. And that's the deal. That's the trade-off. We're going to give you a gift on the tax side. We're going to allow you to defer the taxes and to, have zero taxes for getting rid of your shares. But this blind trust crap where you're allowed to have it managed by somebody else who allegedly you don't talk to and, you don't influence. It's garbage. It's absolute garbage. It's completely one of the major reasons that everyone distrusts American politicians. And it's also bipartisan.
And I don't understand why the public markets do a better job with this than the government officials. We work with a lot of clients who work in specific industries that have very strict regulations as to what they can buy and sell down to a sector, and there's blackout windows and all sorts of other things. Why can't that same sort of implementation be levied on government officials? Baffles me every time this comes up. I don't understand why.
Judges too, actually. I didn't name them.
Right.
Judges have to be, oh yeah, I'm overhearing a court case on whether or not Google should be broken up, but I can trade in and out of Google stock.
Right.
That is literally what you're allowed to do today.
Yeah.
So long as you can make an argument that it wasn't based on non-public material information, you are allowed to do that. You might have an ethics inquiry, but there is no rule barring the judge who is sitting on Google's case from buying and selling Google stock while he is sitting on that case.
With the proliferation of index funds out there, there are a multitude of investment options for them to go into. You could I wouldn't maybe hammer on the sector pieces. I would just say you can have sector ETFs if you want, but you can't trade them. You can only trade them in these certain windows times of the year, whether that's when lawmakers are in recess or whatever you want, just like a public. There are many solutions to this, Mike, and you and I feel like, Chuck, all of us have batted around this segment 100 times on the show.
It's just
beating
so
it down, but
preposterous.
nothing changes. And you know why nothing changes is because
They make money.
They make money.
It's self-interest. You
Right.
make the rules. Of course, they're not going to outlaw themselves from being able to make a whole bunch of money on private information.
It's just like the step up in basis and some of these other tax concepts that come up around, election time. These elected officials are incentivized by them too, which is why you can sort of know that perhaps you have a good chance of these staying in place because the elected officials benefit from
and
these
people
concepts
wonder why
too.
there's no outrage about President Trump holding this dinner of people buying his cryptocurrency. It's because all of you have been doing this, but shadier, for the last 50 years. And getting away with it. So, of course, there's no outrage over this one. All he's doing is, shining a light on it and just pretty much admitting it. Like, yeah, you want to buy a dinner with me? Go ahead and buy my meme coin. I don't know. At least he's not lying to you.